Even the media, the ad copy. We're being told a lot of amazing, interesting things if we know how to look at it. We've been talking about time and cycles all the way through this presentation and how important they are. As we saw, Carl Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to stop from facing their souls. You've heard me put it differently. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to stop facing their shadow self. And that's an enormous problem. You won't face it, but you will project it on somebody else and curse them out and then destroy their innocent lives, or not so innocent, by your projections. That you can manage to do. But see, Shiva, the dynamic has changed. Shiva is the shadow. So to attain true enlightenment is to return to selfhood, right? But did you see in the schemata that we had? Do you see that? That between the ego and the self, to get there, you have to pass through the shadow realm. You might want Shakti because she's gorgeous. She's beautiful. She's real. But you've got to pass through Shiva first. So that's why all this elaboration. Because yes, there is a selfhood. There is a place to return to. But you can't do it without integrating your shadow. You must pass through the cycle of the underworld. And all civilizations do it. And we know that is happening because of the movement of the archetypes. Vernon Howard put it this way. Human sickness is so severe that few can bear to look at it. But those who do will become well. And a picture of the man on the left is Ezra Pound, America's greatest poet. A great teacher, if ever there was one, on these shores. He was locked up for 13 years in Bellevue Mental Asylum. This is what America does with its teachers. And every day that his wife came to visit him in those years, she was searched at the door. Even after everyone knew he's a cool guy, he's all right, he's been locked up erroneously or whatever, because he suffered for what he taught. But still the guards searched his wife. Then a young man who believed that he had been hard done by, out of the millions of his friends who let him down, and the world who didn't peep, a man by the name of Eustace Mullins took himself up to Bellevue and said, I want to interview this terrible super racist, this fascist, this maniac, this conspiratorialist. But he was at one point, and in any book today, and Who's Who, he's the greatest poet that America ever produced. With Wallace Stevens and Sylvia Plath coming afterwards, in my opinion. So Eustace Mullins goes up there, and Ezra basically just pulls out a dollar bill and goes, get your ass back down to that Library of Congress where you work and research this dollar bill until you know the meaning of all the symbols on it. Take it easy. Eustace Mullins did exactly as he was told and started to find out what the raving lunatic Ezra Pound had been saying, and then wrote many volumes, which I hope that American people are very familiar with. Why am I saying this? Is because we have to have some relief to ourselves. We must give ourselves a little bit of credit. The things that we're discovering and studying in the conspiratorial movement is very, very recent. This is what I'm talking about is just after the Second World War. And then Mullins starting to write, his books up through the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and then you've had a few others. See, in England and Europe, we've had a few other authors, like the Nesta Websters, going a little bit back, and so on. But in an American context, the fact that we, as ordinary people, even have an Alex Jones, or anyone, is a miracle to me. It is brilliant. So when you're getting pessimistic, and you're seeing and fatalistic, and horrified, for a moment think that it's extremely recent times that we've even had the privilege of discovering this. I can even probably date, I would really say from the time of Eustace Mullins, it dates. Because he's the one who named the names. It's not that people didn't talk about conspiracy before that, but they were maybe politicians who maybe mentioned it once or twice on the House of the Congress or something like that. But a man who sat down and named names and drew pictures and showed you the symbolism, that is a very recent phenomenon. And it was inspired by this man, this great being, who suffered so immeasurably they destroyed his life after 13 years in that place. And the message is this, that the mass opposition to these tyrants is relatively recent phenomenon, historically speaking. What we're doing is it's like a tyrant, you can imagine the tyrant is the tiger hiding in the long grass. We are slowly burning down the camouflage bit by bit, but this requires the hunter's instinct and the hunter's patience. So I don't want anybody else, I don't care what you're watching on that horror device, courtesy of the Queen, and the tremors of pain and suffering and showing you. Absolutely do not get pessimistic at all, because we are doing wonderful. The opposition has never been before. There has never been in history a true opposition to the forces that we're now discovering. Our forefathers died in factories and mines and barely lived to 25 years of age. They had no newspapers, no internet, no nothing. We have all of these things, and we have now begun to have a glimpse into the hidden establishment that's been preying over the human race for aeons of time. And this is what we need to stay focused on. The spirit of rebellion is on its way. If it's in you already, fantastic. If you have that plutonic, Uranian, Aquarian energy, brilliant. It will be operating in the world, strengthening the psychic emotional immunity. It means that we have to fall in love with the word no. That simple two-letter word would mean so much in the body politic, in society, and in our slaveries that we involve ourselves in every day, that we allow. Remember I told you it's not about have I been sold a lie, it's have I bought one? When you understand that dynamic, then you're saying no to all tyranny, no matter where it comes from. Vernon Howard said also, we can accept that God becomes man to save man, but we can never seem to accept man becoming God to save himself. And I'll leave you with this from the Hopi elders. All that we do now must be done in a sacred manner and in celebration, because we are the ones we have been waiting for. Thank you very much. So let's take a few questions if we can. Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
You have to come over here for the questions. Thank you, Michael.
Turn them on.
Thank you so much, Michael, for your enlightenment.
Thank you.
And the independence to think.
Right.
Earlier in your presentation, you mentioned the trauma that affected humans, that detached ourselves into the ego.
Right.
Can you tell us what this trauma was?
Well, the trauma, in my reading of it, if you're familiar with my work on Atlantis, began with the experimentation and the crossing of alien DNA with human DNA, based on the visitation to our planet of what we might refer to as the Nephilim, or the Bible refers to as the Nephilim, the fallen angels.
How many years ago?
And this was about 50,000 years ago in my reckoning. Somewhere between 30 and 50,000 years ago is what I think. Yeah, that certainly was traumatic enough. And that set the seeds, And this occurred before the other traumas of the earth changes and the pole shifts. So it's just like one trauma upon another that left us in a absolutely, as Julian Jaynes and others have said, it seems that there was a tremendous psychic deremption back then.
Can you tell us what volume that we could go in deeper on this issue?
On tonight's talk, the DVD is 2012, Where History Ends. And then the backup of that is Atlantis. And if people are interested in the being-doing scenario and the psychic cleansing and stuff like that, it's 2012, and also maybe Divination and the Goddess. But I'd say that this talk is mostly the 2012 Where History Ends DVD will be the best one. It's 13 hours, 5 discs long. What we've done is a sort of a compression of that.
Go ahead.
Michael, this is Doug here.
Doug, how you doing?
Thanks a lot, but I really appreciate what you had to say tonight. As you know, as a Christian, we don't always agree on everything, but
right.
I love to talk to you. As I recall, we met at Conspiracy Con, and I just tell people, we need to lay aside our differences to take our freedoms back from these evil people that run our country and the whole world. I would caution you on a couple things, if you don't mind. I want to ask you a couple of questions here. The hanging man you showed there, was that from Aleister Crowley's
No, that was from the Rider-Waite Tarot.
Isn't it? Well, there was two of them you had
the
there.
Golden Dawn.
The first one, wasn't that Golden Dawn?
Oh, yeah, and the other one from Death.
Was Crowley's?
Yeah.
Right, yeah, exactly. Regarding Deepak, there's the Canadian is #1 man exposing 9/11. He put out the first DVD. Remember who I've forgotten his name now. He spoke a month ago when Alex Jones had a big event here. Do you know the man I'm talking about that has a TV show? Anyway, he said, I've got all 17 of his books. I've been studying him for a couple of decades. But he said, folks, you need to understand, he goes along with the government's position on 9/11, and I'm convinced after studying him for 20 years that he's CIA.
Yeah, just because I mentioned somebody in my work does